It's blue now.
Yeah. I just don't have camera feed.
Oh. Well, I'm still go ahead and start the meeting. And I guess you can work on that then, because at least we have the audio. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Grand Falls School Board regular school board meeting for Wednesday, September 27th. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call. We have myself, Director Carey. We have Director Ledoux and Director Ladana in attendance, as well as Director Kincaid on Zoom. Director Kincaid, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, you can't. Oh, can you see us?
Yes, I can now.
Awesome. Do you mind putting her up there so I can see her? If you can. Or your black box, whatever is easier for you, Director Kincaid. All right. I'd like to make a motion to excuse Director Veach. She contacted me and said she needed to miss this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, Director Kincaid?
Hi.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's start with board comments. Do you want to start? I'm just going from the end.
Sure. Yeah, it seems to be the pattern now. Yeah, just a couple things. One is that I was approached by a member of our community who was born and raised here, went to school here, worked here all his life and retired. Went to the football game on Friday and was so overwhelmed with how amazing it was. The student participation, the crowd participation, the uniforms of the football players, the cheerleaders, the band. As a member of the community who's been here all his life, he was incredibly proud and wanted to pass that along to me as a school board director and asked me if I would pass that along to the board, and really proud of the principal and the staff over there for the efforts they put in to put on a community event like that. And again, as a longstanding member of the community, he's incredibly proud of what we're doing here. And so that, good notes. On a second thing, not to take too much time, but in my other profession, I had to visit the middle school this week, and it was during a class change, and I believe first lunch period. And I ran across Mr. Maynard, and it was amazing. It was like organized chaos, but controlled. And I watched him interact with the students there, and I watched the students and staff for the short time I was there, and I'm really pleased with how well that's going over there. So hats off to our staff.
Yeah, as far as for me, it's great to continue to see classes and everybody just get back in the groove of things. I just also, anytime I have interactions with any other parents or anything, I'm just constantly reminded how important communication is. Whenever you reach out to a board member just to discuss something, or hopefully staff, right? I promise you that you'll leave with one thing, right? We come together and you'll either leave, if you have an open mind, you'll leave with maybe an understanding of, oh, maybe my thought can't work out because there's this in place or something, but you'll leave with an understanding, and then we can work together on something. Or you're educating me on something that I'm not aware of that then I can bring back for action. So I cannot stress that enough. Every interaction that I've had with the community has led to something, either them leaving with an education of, oh, I had no idea that the school district, had these same struggles that I'm facing as a parent, but they have it at an administrative level. Or I leave with that sounds like an issue that I could bring up in my meetings with, Dr. Middleton or with other members of the cabinet. So I really appreciate the communication. It's just my recommendation again, once again, that's kind of what I've always banged the drum is communication. So that's all that I have.
Outstanding. I have a couple of things to share. First off, not to jump by, I've had the ability to attend a couple of meetings at the middle school. I'm representing their school this year. And also, I've just been so excited and happy to see that building, that admin team there really grab the reins and be very passionate about not only about that building and serving our students, but also like really putting in the effort to try to do the best that they can. And the communication with staff, I was able to attend kind of one of their staff kickoff meetings and a couple other things. It's really cool. And I'm just excited for all the wonderful things going on at the middle school. I think this is going to be a great year for them. And then also extremely happy with the high school. We got an email here recently by Mr. Nicely, the principal at the high school, kind of highlighting some of the results from the OSP report card for the 21-22 and 22-23 school year. And I just wanted to make sure that I gave him his kudos and talked about the results because they're outstanding. So for the 21-22 year in ELA, they were at a 57.3%. State average is 50.7, so above state average. 22-23, they improved that 11.9% to 69.2. Outstanding increase. In math, they at 21-22 approximately 20.5. They 22-23 increased that to 22.4, so about a 2% increase. Still under the state average of 39, but so some more work to do there, but let's call a win a win. That is growth, and I'm extremely happy about that. And then in science, the 21-22 school year, they were at 48.4%. They were able to increase that 6.9, almost 7% to 55.3 with a state average of 42.9. So in two of the three criteria that the state measures us on the school report card, they're exceeding it on two of the three. So huge kudos to Mr. Nicely, his team, all of the staff teachers there who are really doing the work. And the outcomes are very obvious in what we're seeing here on the state assessment. So that's all I've got. Director Kincaid, do you have anything?
There we go. Yeah, I just wanted to say it's really great to hear all of your guys' comments today and hearing the good reports coming out from the different schools. And that's one thing that I've heard from parents is that they are saying that they are having a pretty good start to the year and everyone is really pleased at some of the changes that have been made, and they're just everybody's seeing, progress and positive things all around. And so that's just what I've been hearing, and that makes my heart really happy. So kudos to everybody for just, kicking off the year on a really good foot.
Outstanding. All right, moving on to item 3A, update on superintendent search. Dr. M, is there something I'm presenting on that or?
No, I can give an update on this. Northwest Leadership Associates contacted Director Veach as well as Melanie just within the last couple of days. And with a survey as well as information on the upcoming stakeholder meetings. And so they've got those scheduled. In fact, Melanie today sent out to the staff as well as to our families an invitation to participate in a survey, as well as let them know that on October 3rd, there are different time slots for stakeholders to come and visit with the consultants who are leading that. So it's going to get underway here pretty quickly.
So other than the surveys, or anything that the board needs to do right now?
I think probably in your inbox is something from Melanie regarding next week and meetings with the Northwest Leadership Consultants. So I don't know what time that's at, but there is an invitation there for you.
Okay. I don't see it right off, but I'm sure there's something in here I just haven't seen yet. Board, any questions on that?
Was there, it looks like as part of the search timeline, today was the day of posting on various sites and stuff like that. Were we supposed, is there supposed to be our criteria are, put together for that, or are we meeting on that separately?
The announcement has been created and I think sent to a variety of places for posting. But these stakeholder meetings are to drill down what you're looking for specifically. So,
well, and I'm just saying to like compensation and stuff like that. So that's to come though.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and those discussions usually happen later in the process. As we collaborate with them, they kind of give us a range and we talk. So yeah, we'll have a good, robust discussion on that, just drawing off previous experience. That's a great question, though. Any other questions? All right, moving on. Board reports. I'll go real quick with Ledge report, just because I'm guessing that's probably going to be one of the longer ones. So this past Friday, Saturday, I did attend General Assembly as the voting delegate, where WASDA sets its legislative priorities for this upcoming legislative session. As I'm sure you guys remember, part of that was a bylaw change that we signed on to, and that I was certainly passionately talking about with other colleagues on school boards about removing weighted vote. The meeting was, I think contentious would be an understatement, but it's the best word I could come up with. We had record-breaking attendance at the WASDA meeting. I think we had somewhere around 140 different school boards around the state, like annihilating. I think the closest they've ever gotten was like 110. So a lot of great representation in a hybrid model. There was basically 30 or so school districts in person in Spokane. I was there in person also, and everybody else was attending virtually. Which I initially thought was going to be a good thing, and I'm not saying it wasn't, but there was certainly some challenges with that. But the bylaw resolution was the first thing that we needed to discuss before we could then get into reviewing the position proposals and stuff like that. And we debated the bylaw, the weighted vote removal for 7 hours. Yeah, 7 hours, complete with someone charging the stage in anger and words that I won't repeat in fair company. There was a contentious meeting. However, I'm very pleased to say by a 75% vote, weighted vote was removed from the WASDA, eventually was removed from the WASDA bylaws. So now it is truly one board, one vote. No school board has any more power, authority in the WASDA in setting these legislative priorities than anyone else, which I still contend, even after a contentious meeting, was the right thing to do for the right reasons. So that's an amazing thing that we were able to kind of get that going, support that, and that eventually came to fruition. So the next step, as I'm sure you guys all know, is General Assembly, which is on this side of the Cascades this year in Bellevue. I know I've seen Paris sent an email. I highly encourage, if you can make it, to come. The breakout sessions are good. There's certainly times where I learn things, but quite honestly, the greatest value I get out of it is speaking with other colleagues of other boards and be like, oh, wow, you're dealing with that too? How'd you guys deal with that? And then they give you an answer like, what a simple, ingenious way of dealing with that. We should do that. So I get a lot of value out of it. So, and Bill, for someone that's new, I think it's really, really great too, to kind of see where you fit in the grand scheme of things. So there's my little plug for that. Any questions or anything on ledge report? All right. Do you want to go WIAA?
Sure. Just overall exciting, just from a sports perspective too, especially at the high school. Football is, on that beautiful new field, they are performing very well. 3-1 right now. So go and cheer them on to day after tomorrow, Black and Blue game against Sultan right here at home. So go do that. That's always fun. We've got girls soccer also. That's going to be this weekend at Granite on Saturday at 12. So go check that out. And then our 7-1 girls volleyball team is also playing on Saturday. They're going to be playing at Orcas Island on Saturday. So if you want to have a beautiful trip over the weekend and spend a day out in the islands, jump up there and support. It's a good reason to get out and explore a little bit more of our beautiful state. But that's about it. We're all this is fantastic, right? We're students first, athletes, but these student athletes are doing amazing work both inside the classroom and also on the field and court. So
outstanding. Any questions, anyone? All right. Director Kincaid, you want to go into community?
Sure. So we had a meeting with the Family Engagement Board the other day, and it went really well. Some new faces. So that was really exciting. Everybody's really excited about the notebooks and planning for the notebooks for next year even. So that's really exciting. And taking what we're hearing from parents and stuff, getting some really good feedback, which surprised us from the parents of the kids in the older grades in the high school and at Crossroads. And the parents are just really excited to have something that they can hang on to. They can put things into it, and it has all the forms in there that they need for all different kinds of things. So getting really good feedback about that. And then I've just been in the planning stages of my dialogue with a director that I will be doing in October. Been talking to the community about whether they wanted that in person or on a Zoom or that sort of thing. And they all said in person. So I'm excited to do that. Again, it'll be on an evening in October, not quite sure yet when. But it will just be an opportunity for people to come chat. And hopefully I can direct them to where they need to go to find answers to some of their questions. So that's it.
I've got a quick question, if you don't mind, Director Kincaid, on that. I think that dialogue with the director is an amazing idea. So is your intent to do it with just one director or two? That way it's not a quorum and like rotate the two, or what are your thoughts as far as, who's there?
I would absolutely love to have any of you join me if anyone wants to, or if anyone wants to take it on by themselves at any point. I just kind of wanted to get the ball rolling and get it started. Not a place for us to, discuss or, share our opinions per se, but to just be able to answer questions and direct people where to go and let people be heard. So if any of you are interested, want to do it, by all means.
Are you planning on taking like Dr. M or like Marshall or staff or something like that, just in case there's like, deeper, teaching level questions and stuff like that maybe and I'm not saying you should or you have to, I guess I'm just asking the question if you're just going to be there by yourself.
I hadn't intended to, but if they would like to come too, that would be fine. My intent on that sort of thing is just to be able to direct them where they can get those questions answered. So if it's something that needs to be answered by one of them, just to direct people where to go and how to contact them and that sort of thing. But by all means, if anyone can come, I'm not excluding anyone. So
yeah, outstanding. Well done. Any other questions, Sport? Okie dokie. All right, moving on. Item 4B, Superintendent Report.
I just have a few things to share tonight, and I think Director Carey, you really sort of undersold us on how big of a change that is in the WASDA vote to go from weighted vote to unweighted was immense. And so I just want to say thank you and congratulations, because I know that took a lot of time and energy, and it really started with a small group of directors who said, why don't we? And then it really grew. So again, thank you and congratulations on that. That is a huge victory.
Thank you.
So, I wanted to touch really quickly upon the state report card, which has been released. And I know I'm going to have Dr. Mann share at a future meeting when we're done with iReady and our map testing, to also talk a little bit about the report cards. But just to hit some highlights, again, the high school surpassed state average in language arts and science. And I know we mentioned this previously, but Crossroads also exceeded in the state average in language arts. So that's really exciting. And Monte Cristo, though not surpassing state average, they saw some nice growth as well. So we're starting to see it happen. And so we're excited to see what our fall iReady and our map, which is measures of academic progress, how those assessments are going. And we're still in the assessment window, but that should be wrapping up shortly. And then we'll come back and share how things are looking at this point. The other item regarding the state report card is attendance is crucial. And when kids aren't here, they're not learning. And so I know that at the last couple of meetings, we've talked about the school improvement plans. And while that's not a specific independent goal, it's a sub goal of our academic achievement. And so we want to be monitoring that even more closely. So we want to come back to you with some data on that. Safety, we met with Chief Dalton last week, and he is out doing his rounds again. And so we greatly appreciate that. I think he's made it to every school now. And again, he's going in, chatting with the principal, but then doing some safety checks. And so again, thank you. Thank Chief Dalton for his presence and really investing in our schools. And we do have Railroad Days coming up really quickly, October 7th. I sent out an email just to see if anyone can give some time at the booth. So look for that email. And if you can, that would be great. Then the last thing I have is we have two guests here tonight who I think most of us have had a chance to visit with, but we have our architects, Greg McCracken and Bob Lindstrom, and I've asked them to come and visit with us for about 45 minutes. I think they have about a 10 to 15 minute presentation and then open it up for questions. So over a year ago, we submitted a request for proposal on a facility master plan, because we know going forward, we've got to have a roadmap. And so they came in and they did a few assessments. They certainly did a facility assessment. And we asked them, okay, what are the immediate needs that we have? What are the things longer range? But we also wanted to look at our demographics because we're growing. And we also wanted them to look at our educational adequacy. And so two things happened. We formed a community committee, and two of you had a chance to join some of those committee meetings. And we also invited just a wide range of people. We actually asked people if they wanted to join, and it was really, I considered it the perfect group because it represented all demographics. And what I really liked was it was not a group of people that just said, yes, we agree with you. They were people that questioned the process, questioned a path forward. We talked about different scenarios. It was just really healthy discussion on the future of our facilities. And it's, again, the actual infrastructure as well as the educational adequacy. And so tonight, Greg and Bob want to present on what I call the handoff, because we hired them to prepare this document to help us to move forward. And so I'm going to ask them to come forward and give us that 30,000 foot level on the work that they've done, what they see, and talk about some of the challenges that the board will have in going forward. And it has been an absolute pleasure working with these two gentlemen. When we did the RFP, we had, I don't know, I forget the
Like
number,
4 or
6.
5. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 firms submit. And when we selected BLRB, there were a lot of reasons, but it really manifested when we did our community meetings. I've been involved in a number of other capital projects, and the committee meetings were just so well run and really gave voice to our community. And so I attribute a lot to these two guys who really helped bring that out. So I'll have Greg and Bob come on up and share what they have.
One quick second, not to steal your thunder. Board, any questions about the superintendent report or anything Dr. Middleton said or anything before we move on to the next item on the agenda? No. Okay, you good too, Carly?
I just had one kind of silly question about Railroad Days. Is our booth in the same spot as last year?
I'd have to ask, Dr. Mann said that it's close to City Hall.
I requested it to
Okay.
be in the spot close, right across from City Hall. And we'll
Okay,
see.
that's where we were last year. So just
Okay.
curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll move on to item 5A on the agenda, facility master plan presentation. Take it away.
Thank you, Director Carey. I'm Greg McCracken, my colleague Bob Lindstrom. We will keep this succinct for about 10 to 15 minutes because we actually want to get more feedback or comments from you if you have any. And as Superintendent Middleton noted, we have a completed report over 200 some pages of detail that is available as well. So thanks for having us. I'm excited to kind of share this with you. We will go over the process, the general findings at a very, very high level, at 30,000 foot level, some scope and impact regarding funding and financing, and maybe discuss next steps and open it up for questions. The process, as Josh noted, the how and the why started quite a while ago. Here we are in September of 2023, but we started way back early in 2022, I believe, when we started discussions. Bob and I had the pleasure of working with the executive team, which was Marshall, Dr. Middleton, and Director Carey, of just talking about roles and goals and controls and how do we develop this process specific to Granite Falls to make it impactful, meaningful, and have something that we can then move towards next steps in process. And there's really 3 significant whys that we discussed during those meetings. We knew we had growth challenges, right? We're seeing it. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. We also had aging facilities, and Bob and our engineering team really had to scour through and see what kind of condition all of the facilities were on a physical level. And then there was educational program needs. We knew that all the facilities weren't meeting all the program needs, and how do we do that from a facility standpoint? So we looked at all of those pieces. The challenge, of course, and we knew right off the bat, and we discussed this intently in those executive team meetings, was we're a small school district, right? We're going to have limited resources. So that was a real concern because we we knew the need with growth and program was going to be large. So we wanted to address that. Current political climate and perceptions for facilities. As we know, since COVID, the Washington State school bond market has been challenging at best, right? We shared that with the committee, with the executive team. I believe it was 2021 that 0 school bonds passed. It was one of those years right after COVID, where typically, if you track these for the last 20, 30 years before COVID, you'd have 35 to 50 bonds passing. And that's how school districts meet their facilities needs many times. But we didn't start with that bond question. We just knew that we had limited resources. We knew we had a challenging climate, and we knew we still had to plan for growth in that, right? So that's where we started. That's why we decided to join you folks and talk about this. As I mentioned, the first item that came up was, let's scour the buildings. In April of 2022, you took your team out for 2 or 3 days, I think, Bob. Yeah, 3 days, and looked at every facility, rated it, marked it out, worked with OSPI and their building condition assessment worksheets, and really got a good understanding of their physical conditions. And we presented that to you folks. I forget when. I think a year or so ago, maybe not. Anyway, we gave you some of those detailed findings that also informed the process. In addition to that, as Dr. Middleton noted, we met with the schools and developed an educational adequacy assessment, anywhere from delivery to support programs, technology, security, supervision. We met with a small group of administrators and a select group of educators, and we had a list of questions and comments, and we took a bunch of notes and really said, hey, how does your school meet your education needs, and how does it need to be improved? And those type of things are as important as the physical condition. So those are the two large assessments that we did. And then early in the spring of this year, then we assembled this broad-based planning committee. And as Dr. Middleton noted, it was a really good representation of the community. We had some folks that from the board that attended and listened a lot, and we really walked them through a process, developing the planning principles, exploring a variety of scenarios in great depth, and then trying to figure out what the scope and the cost impact of all of this means, and then what would be those next steps. And that then landed a completed long-range facility planning report that we have submitted to the district. And then it really then now gives us a document that details the need, details the process, and then allows for those next steps. So quickly, let's talk about some of those components. And we're going to keep a high level, the enrollment, the short-term needs and the physical needs, and then a high level look at those long-term facility needs. Even from your own school data, this is your 2021, 22, and 22, 23 enrollment. We can see that we are a growing school district. But we also looked at a variety of other elements. One of the components we use is the ICOS enrollment projections. They used to be called cohort projections. It's from OSPI. And they have it's a formula based. They take all your enrollment information and you submit it every year. Marshall, your team, you know how this goes. And they put this in this formula. And what they're seeing from the year that we currently are in 2023 to 2028 is about a 22% growth. Most of that occurs K through 5, pre-K through 5. And we also worked with your district to understand that we have such a need and such a growth need for the early learning in the pre-K world. In fact, we went from last year at 85 to this year at 100, and we continue to see that growth. That will continue to grow up through those larger grades from 6 to 8 and then 9 through 12. So we're seeing growth, and the state is projecting growth. Before I move off of that, we also had information from an independent demographer,
Davis demographic.
Davis, yeah, and they did it. We analyzed some of that data, but we did not include it in our report because we were waiting for additional information and updates. It was done during the COVID time, and it was a little skewed, and we wanted to get that corrected. It did show growth, but it showed growth at a slower rate than OSPI, and we just didn't get those updates prior to the submittal of the report. But I know, Marshall, you're continuing to work with those groups, I think, to update some of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're gonna reach back out to them, a fresh update.
But they did notice growth too, at a little bit slower growth, about a 2%, 2.2% per year growth, if I remember from those demographics. And what that means is, so we started to look at specific schools. And current enrollment, if you look at it, if you just take Mountain Way, and if you look at 2023 enrollment, the capacity and the projected enrollments, and you can see by 2028, we're going to have more students than we do have current capacity. And that capacity, remember, includes portable classrooms. That also demonstrates itself at the Monte Cristo Elementary School too, including that pre-K piece. So even if we found room for how to deal with the pre-K folks, we still are going to be right there pushing our capacity in 2028 if those projections hold. The middle school is a little bit different, but remember, we have significant amount of portables on the middle school. So if you want to get folks back into a facility of housed classrooms other than portables, we'd have to do that as well. The high school itself does not have a capacity issue. We explored adding a couple of classrooms to the high school, but it was only because of program, not because of growth. We have good capacity, but remember, that's going to slowly come up and you're going to see capacity increases. But currently right now, we don't have this huge concern regarding capacity at the high school. Crossroads is currently, for the current capacity and the projections, once again, they are utilizing portables, and some of those existing classrooms aren't meeting their program needs, and that would be where they stand there as well. One of the items we did too, just to give general understanding of growth impact costs, is we assigned some numbers to if we needed to get the classrooms to address the 2028 and beyond growth numbers, what would that look like? Because remember, the growth includes adding classrooms, core facilities, and those types of things. Would we have to grow a kitchen? Would we have to grow a multi-purpose room? Those types of things. This is a high-level understanding of some growth impacts at each school. And I won't go over every number, just know that so you can get an understanding, gosh, if it's just purely growth to address that capacity, what would that mean to our school district? Those are good for discussions with municipalities and infrastructure development, those types of things. The second item, of course, was those building condition needs. And as I mentioned, we scoured the facility with engineers and architects to look at the ratings and the facilities conditions per OSPI and the BCA assessments. We shared a lot of this information early on. I'm not going to go into detail. I just think it's really important that generally, Bob, the buildings are not structurally deficient. They're fairly sound, but just a lot of aging systems and such.
Right, right. And then we delivered a report, I think, for the first summer. And you guys, with the help of Dion, started going right down that list. So it was a pretty efficient system of identifying immediate needs, and needs that the district could do by themselves without getting involved with architects or engineers, get them done over the summer and identifying that and then going from there.
Yeah. We ranked them in a couple different ways. This is just the priority summary of costs. If you remember, we analyzed the conditions in a priority 1. Hey, what you have to accomplish in the next 1 to 3 years, priority 2, 2 to 5 years, priority 3, 4, and 5 as you extend down, just to kind of get an understanding of not only the scope, but the timeline. And it was about a $26 to $34 million impact if we addressed all those facility needs. And that's just the physical assessment. That's nothing to do with the educational program, the facility program needs. Then we also began to look at those long-range planning needs. So taking those physical needs and looking at growth and looking at educational needs and educational adequacy, and how do we start to build at each school. And we looked at every school, and we had a tremendous collaboration with this community group, with this facilities planning group, and really explored numerous scenarios. One of the first things we did too, well, this is the process. We met about 4 times over the spring, April and May, and really it was pretty intensive workshops of over 3 hours of really exploring scenarios, really exploring needs, and deciding how best to accommodate those needs. One of the first workshops we did, we developed guiding planning principles so we can evaluate, and I think these can be put up on a wall, and really as you pursue next steps and pursue any type of additional planning for those improvements, utilizing these include safety and security, technology, and early learning focus, being a heart of community. This team really wrestled with what was really important as we plan for our schools. And so I think it's important to honor all that great work that they did. And at the end of that spring planning, we really did clarify, I think, 3 distinct paths, Bob, with this group. And the first path was, let's look at keeping our existing facilities, Way, Monte Cristo, Grand Falls Middle School, High School, and Crossroads, and let's add on to them the necessary classrooms, expanding the core spaces, improving the infrastructure and the systems, and addressing all those pieces. So that was kind of scenario 1, that it was additions and modernizations to your schools. And we looked at improving all of the schools and addressing their needs. Scenario 2 was similar in nature, but it really started with a brand new, very large K or 1 through 5 elementary school at the Mountain Way site. We explored the fact that, we could build a new facility on the Mountain Way site, keeping Mountain Way operating for occupancy, and then demolishing that, have a large elementary school, and then looking at additions and modernizations to the other facilities as you grow. And so we looked at that. It was just another way to look at growth and facility improvements. And then finally, and I really liked our committee, because they were such thoughtful stewards of your dollars. They're saying, is it, because these, and you'll see here in a minute, these numbers to address all needs and all facilities was large. They said, could we look at dealing with growth and educational needs through portable facilities. So we looked at a scenario that said, how do we place portables on site to deal with classrooms? And do we still then, of course, address the core facilities of a multi-purpose room or a kitchen if it was needed, educational programs, et cetera. So those are the three primary paths that the committee kind of determined were the best for Granite Falls. And we have great details and lots of graphics within that report. I'm just keeping this very, very high. Well, what you can see from the summary of costs is all of the scenarios that are going to deal with the facilities of growth, building condition, and program needs. If we addressed everything, soup to nuts, is a really large number. $200 to $250 million. The most economical one of just the portables is still $150 million to $190 million in need. And so that was the struggle that we knew we'd get into. If we're going to really address the needs of these facilities, soup to nuts, it was a large number. So then the committee wanted to discuss scope, funding, and impact, and how do we deal with that? So how do you finance it? How do you fund? We never talked about a bond until the committee wrote it up. How do we fund it? We looked at a variety of scenarios. We looked at capital levies. We looked at capital bonds. We looked at general fund use. We looked at other needs. And it's very difficult to fund such a large amount in a small school district. It became clear that most school districts with this large of a need in this community do look at capital facility bonds to do that. And they asked, well, what is this? And so we brought in Corey Plager from D.A. Davidson, who is really the state's expert on capital facilities bond and public funding and financing. And he gave a great presentation. Great news is that we can celebrate is we have a bond that retires in 2025 and gives us some flexibility, right? And so we need to maybe think about that opportunity and celebrate the success that you guys have done these bonds before, have made great improvements, and now we're going to retire a bond. So that was good news. We also looked at a debt capacity, and the formula is we have a significant capacity to tax ourselves. At about $165 million. And that will even rise further as your bond retires and you pay off debt, et cetera. We also looked at what really are the taxing implications on the community. We had no idea. We just threw some examples up, and Corey developed a couple of numbers. If you did about a $50 million bond, it would be about an 83 cents per thousand over 20 years. Tax implication. And if you did about $100 million bond over 20 years, these are just examples. We're not advocating anything. We're just trying to get scope and impact, right? Is about $1.85 per thousand. And those were helpful. But in addition to that too, we also get from the state funding assistance. Currently, we get for our K-8 facilities about $6.8 million from the state. However, Bob, that will almost double because I think in 2025, Monte Cristo or Mountain Wave goes back on the books and we get some 2024. So this is current, but we're going to see, because it's a timeline, a 30-year timeline for these folks, and those facility improvements will have circulated through that 30 years. And so you'll get some more SCAP funding. It's School Construction Assistance Program from the state. So we took all of that information, and this was a great group, and I loved it because they really did develop these three scenarios and wrestled with some really hard questions. And then the committee, for the next step, they developed, we gave them pens and pencils and said, give me your plan. We didn't offer any dollar amounts. We didn't offer any guidance other than sharing with them all really good information of what was the need. And we brought them into 2 and 3 groups and said, what's your plan? We got a consistent answer, which I think really is going to build on next steps. They said, let's invest, and they came up with this number in different groups at the same time. Let's invest about $100 million in our first bond program or our first capital facilities program, addressing K-5 needs. I think there was a consensus moving towards the K-5 addition modernization. I know the committee at the very end really struggled with a really large elementary school. And I think the district educationally would struggle with that large of an elementary school. So they focused on, let's build on what we have in that K-5 arena at Mountain Way and Monte Cristo. A new early learning center is important. And we looked at a variety of options. We looked at a brand new facility. We looked at repurposing Monte Cristo or Mountain Way, and how do you do those? But we do know we needed an early learning focus because we see that need. And then let's invest in select improvements on a middle school. And that became pretty consistent with the group. But it needs further vetting. It needs now focus and detail, because these are large ticket numbers for a long range plan. And additionally, then this is a phased improvement plan. We knew we couldn't eat the whole elephant at one time. Let's look at this pre-K through 5 middle school needs, and then look at perhaps then additional needs for the high schools and crossroads. They even suggested some additional functions like a performing arts and those types of things. That was their suggestion. That was the team's, the committee's development of a long-range facility plan. And that's now documented within that report. With that, we assembled all that information, gave it to Josh and Marshall, and said, we still have work to do, right? What's those next steps? And probably assembling, if the board thinks, gosh, some sort of facilities planning improvements need to be happening, I would use this as a tool to focus the detail and refine what that plan looks like in greater facilities detail. So that's the end of my summary. And remember, there's a lot of information. I hope you followed me on there. Other than that, Bob and I can answer what we can as needed.
Yeah, I'll open up to the board. I'll just say a couple of things being on the exec team. Again, I think Bob and Greg did an amazing job really shepherding us through this process. And one of the things that I love is quite honestly, and I think you undersold it, like the conclusion that we came, like I as a board member was there, but I almost said nothing. Like I wanted the community, this to be whatever the community decided it'd be. And we had a really good cross section of literally just community members, staff, teachers, right? People that are very passionate about this school district. And even some people that I would consider semi-detractors from the school district, all involved. And it really was a collaborative effort. So certainly kudos to them. So I'll open it up there with a discussion of next steps. But just to clarify, and you can help me with this, Dr. M. In a perfect world, I guess, what direction, what feedback are you looking from the board tonight on this? Are you looking just for us to absorb the information and continue the discussion, or where do you want us to go?
I think it is absorbing that, and certainly the reports will be coming to you following this. But I like Greg's last comment, and that was, it's one thing to have this report. It would be a shame to put it on a shelf and then it sort of loses momentum. His comment of maybe you need to have a standing facility committee, and with, you know, whatever the board charges them with, but to keep this discussion alive. The scary part is we're going to need portables next year. Not a lot, but we're going to need them. But when you talk about an increase of 500 students in just 4 or 5 years, that's significant. And so that's why we really can't wait on this. I think, again, charging us with, getting that committee together again, or inviting new members also, that would be my recommendation.
Got it. So no formal, like, this is where we're going or anything like that tonight per se.
That's right. There's a lot of information that was presented tonight, even more that will be sent. But we can't let a year go by and say, oh yeah, let's revisit this facility thing. That would be, we'd be at that starting all over again. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just no real questions. I mean, I need to think about how I would take these into action items really going forward, but more or less just everybody that's listening or can come back and watch this, post. I always try to solve problems through, like, what are just universal, what is a truth, something that is not going to change or evolve over time. People are coming. We are growing. That is a universal truth. Granite Falls is not shrinking. Okay, so let's get that through, right? We're getting more people, and money is not getting cheaper. It is, and I say that in the sense of, in 20 years from now, right? You look at $100 million bond. In 20 years from now, that $100 million bond is worth $200 million, something along those lines, right? So the fact of the matter is, we have to solve a problem, and we do need money to do it, right? So yes, Dr. M, to your point, it's not like we have to make a decision tomorrow or anything like that, but time does play an important factor in this. I say this too because, Marshall, really appreciate you sending in the financial report the choice transfer stuff. As of right now, 15% of the eligible students in our district choice transfer out of it. And as people keep coming, not just to Granite, but to Lake Stevens and to all these other places, there's going to be some certain point, right? We're not the only district that are facing these problems. Lake Stevens will have to grow. Arlington will have to grow. Arlington takes a ton of our students. Marysville will have to grow. They all have to go through. There's going to be a certain tipping point too, where I could easily see schools saying, we can't take anybody, right? We need the buildings and facilities. And as I guess all that it makes me think of, a poor environment, and I'm looking 15 years down the road. If we don't jump on top of this, a poor environment would generate poor talent, which drives poor outcomes, right? So, I mean, we have to be so proactive on this. And that's where I just go back to the two universal truths of people are coming. We can't get around that. We have to be able to adapt to the fact that we need more space in there. If by some magical flip of the switch, schools stopped accepting choice transfers, we would have no space for those 393 students that choice transferred out. We just wouldn't right now. In fact, that's nearly our 2028 projection, right? So as we're getting these sewer permits, approved and 500 homes or whatever are coming in, let's call it a child or a child and a half per home. Like, that's way more kids than even this 2028 projection is coming through. So I say that because, like I said, I still need to marinate through like what the actual actionable items are about it, but just understanding the sentiment of, or the gravity of the situation that we're in. We are growing. It's going to take money, and it seems like a lot of money, but it's a lot of people. It's a big thing that we're resolving or that we're trying to work through. So appreciate you, putting this all together. And I'm just doing quick math on there, right? $100 million bond at $1.82 or 83 Right.
for a $500,000 home is $952 a year, right? So some people spend that much on fireworks, right? This is for our children's education. Just something to keep in mind. So
Great points.
It's a lot to absorb, and I, this is the first hit for me on this. I look forward to reading more into the reports as they come in. It is going to be a big ask for the community with the state of taxing currently in our state, our county, but it is important. And so I think in the idea of bringing the committee back together and coming up with the real key needs now and what that's going to look like financially. And then using this report, which I think is going to be helpful in convincing our taxpayers that this is the direction that we need to go and get them on board to support it, is our next steps. And I do agree that we need to move sooner than later. Waiting isn't going to make this better.
Director Kincaid, I know you're a ponderer. Any thoughts, comments?
No, not really. I think Peter said a lot of what I was gonna say, so I will just leave it at that.
Awesome. I just had a couple of questions, and I certainly don't want to, I just want to clarify something, Marshall, and I'm not wanting to pull out your report or anything you had, but of the choice transfers of the kids we have transferring out, that you said we had 393 approximately accepted. Are those brand new or are those total in the district?
Those are total.
Total, okay.
Yeah.
So those are kids that potentially have been choice transferring since kindergarten that are, okay. And then the 12, so the brand new ones were the, I think like 12 or something like that. Is that?
I think it might have been 40.
Four. Oh, you know what? That list is longer than I thought. Yeah. Okay. And then we had, so of transfers in, I didn't see a good number. Oh, 53.
Yeah.
So roughly, so that 390, whatever, that doesn't, does that include the 12? The 12 new ones?
40 new ones, yeah.
The 40 new ones, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
why do I keep saying 40? So 393 includes the 40.
Yeah.
So I think I heard you say it. So if you separate the two of those, 393 minus 54, 340-ish or so. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that and make sure that those weren't necessary. I was understanding and processing those numbers the right way. Dr. M, just a question for you. So if we wanted to bring this, this group back together, continue the discussion, I guess, what would that look like? I mean, would we be able to work with, or I guess maybe even that question is for you, Greg and Bob too. I mean, obviously with the change of your firm, would you guys still be involved in that? Or I guess, what would that look like?
Now, I was thinking the same thing, is because in previous building experiences, there's typically a firm that you're working with. And so I think that's one thing as a group we'll want to talk about. But I do think it would be beneficial to, bring that committee from last spring together, give them an update, and then just sort of poll them who's interested in continuing to be on this, as well as extend an invitation to new members.
And we can do that, Greg, Bob, you guys are comfortable with doing that under our current agreement, or I guess what would that would?
It would be a newer, because we've wrapped up our agreement.
So I figured you would say, I just wanted to be
Yeah,
clear.
but with that, I'm not going to answer for Bob, but Bob and I really enjoy this group. Would like to continue, and I think there's a opportunity that we could somehow extend our involvement as needed. So
one thing that we've gone back and forth with, and a lot of it depended on sort of the response tonight, was, do we put the band back together for a little bit,
Yeah.
at least one time,
Yeah.
because we felt like, is there a need for some closure, at least for that group that spent all those hours last spring? And while it might be closure for some, it might be
an opportunity again
Yeah.
for others.
Yeah.
And Director Carey, I offered under our existing agreement to go ahead and let's do that one celebratory wrap up and to discuss next steps with that group. So, within the next few weeks, maybe we could get the band back together and discuss those.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So I think if we could do that, yeah, I even saw you guys nodding out the corner of my eye. Yeah. So I think that would be great. The only other thing I would say, just going off, I like the way you summarize things often, Director Ledoux, just going off your universal truth. The other universal truth, and I'm still pondering everything also, is, bonds are a high watermark to get past. You guys know the numbers better than me, but like in the last year or so, how many percentage of bonds were?
13%.
Yeah.
Last year, and it gets bleak as you go down, I believe.
Yeah, it does, but that's also 13% of the few that even tried to pass.
Right.
Right, because when you said zero, I think in 2020 or 2021, no one was even wanting to try to go out. Right, so we're just now starting to see districts
Even decide to
move the needle, and yeah, so I think the stats coming up in November are, there's 7 districts that are gonna try in this November. And then, of course, we'll see what, we'll see what.
I've got information, I can shoot both of this whole group, you can get it out to folks, of just the last 4 years and its percentage of passing and how many went out.
Yeah.
I guess I should have brought that, because that's a really good question,
But yeah.
but it's tough.
To your
right now.
point, yes, it's not.
So I mean, if it's something that we as a board, as a district, as a community want to do, man, it's gotta be, we've all got to be together. I mean, as someone who worked through our last bond at the STEM building, there's a lot of late nights calling people,
Yeah.
a lot of door knocking, right? Standing in the rain with a sign, please vote for the bond. Like, you have to do the work. Because you not only have to qualify for the 60%, but you also have to qualify for vote totals too, which, so you need and want people to vote. Obviously, you want them to vote for it, but you need them to vote too. So you're really trying to check both check marks to make sure that you qualify for it.
Well, and that's why I bring up those 2 universal truths, because I mean, as bond's difficult, but it's the only thing out of those 3 that we can actually influence, right? That we could do anything about. And that's just, it's not a fun discussion for anybody, right? Like, I live in the community. I don't want to pay more taxes either. However, at the same point in time, like, that's the universal truth that we're facing, is that if there's another way to do this, I am all ears, right? I am, but we do need to understand that, if we're going to be growing immensely in population and students, and I mean, everybody, right? Inflation has been the buzzword for the past 3 years. What do we do?
Yeah.
Right. I'm all ears. And so I know of one lever to pull, and I'm all ears for any other lever that there's out there. So.
And then just the last point I'll make, because you make a really good point about time. I don't know, do you have access to still pull up could you go back to when the bond drops off?
See, I think that's really important.
Yeah, so the discussion changes, right? The communication, and I'm not advocating right now that we do it or not, but I'm just saying that the discussion changes if the bond drops off, right? And if the taxes go down, right? So the communication is, hey, you're going to basically pay what you pay now.
Yes.
Whereas if we waited to 25, 26, it's, hey, your taxes are way cheaper and I want to make them, another significantly more.
The message is more difficult when you're saying, I'm adding this much to your tax base, as opposed to say, if this is a replacement or even a lower of taxing in 2025. So that timeline is kind of interesting. That's why it's a unique opportunity.
And that's exactly too, like, I just want to make sure it's very clear that the message isn't, that we want to get it in. It's just, let's paint the picture right now. Citizen A is paying this amount. Let's just live in a world where you've been paying that amount for the past 20, 25 years. And now you continue to pay the same, if not less. And all of this great stuff for the schools happen, right? That's the picture that that I guess I'm painting in my own mind when I'm looking through this. Is been doing this for this long, right? We're going to have to continue to do this at some point. It's not like, to your point, Director Carey, taxes drop down, fantastic. I mean, we're not just going to let the schools run into shambles. Like, stuff's going to have to come in at some point. So great. Do we get to save that $952 on a $500,000 house for 2 or 3 years? And now we have to do a $150 million bond, right? So it's just, it's a hard discussion. It's a hard decision, but it is definitely something that we want to jump in front of, especially with 2025. Years just seem to fly by now. So it's coming, right?
So I think, Dr. M, we'd love to get the band back together once, and then just so that this doesn't drop off our radar, not that it would, I think that we should probably get like a study session or something on the board calendar for the future, just so that we know that, hey, in November, we're gonna talk about this again, right? And really get deep into it and just talk about that. So that makes sense.
We'll work on that.
Anybody else? Any other questions, discussions, anything else?
I
Director,
just
can-
wanted,
Go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to say real quickly that, regardless of where we land on levies and bonds, I think an important thing that we need to start doing now, knowing that we have these things coming up in the future, is rallying around our families and our community and everyone and getting them to be excited again about our school district, so that when these things come up, when these levies and bonds come up, that it's not such a hard thing to get them on our side. And so I think, just focusing on getting people excited so that, when they come up, it's not, such a struggle for us to do.
Agreed. All right, I think we're great. Bob, Greg, I know that your commute here wasn't super easy, but I appreciate you coming up and being willing to do it.
Yeah.
It's always great to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then, Dr. Middleton, we can work on a time for that celebration wrap up and next steps.
That sounds great. Thank you. Thanks for coming up.
All right, moving on to item 6A, items from the floor. Dr. M, do we have any items from the floor? Okay. Moving on to unfinished business, we have none. Moving on to new business, we have none. Consent agenda, there were some agenda additions, were there not? No, there was not. Correct, Paris? Okay. So any concerns or discussions with the consent agenda? If not, we can, hearing none, we can pass that with unanimous consent. And that is the end. So we can end our meeting at 7:13.